I did not know that this was a festival day for you. I have organized my class today. Today I am going to talk on bone lesions. See, for everything we used to have mnemonics in MBBS. Like that only. Let's see how we can characterize bone lesions. The bone lesions, whenever you have a bone lesions, you please remember stamps. Philately, we used to collect stamps when we were childhood. Now this is no longer a hobby. People are busy with the computer games like PUBG and card and all. When our time we never had this, so we used to collect stamps, coins. The philately, numismatic, like that we used to have stamps. Younger generation may not know what is the inland cover and stamps also, but at that time we used to paste a stamp so that a letter gets delivered. Now let us see what is stamps. It is site, T for transition zone, A for age, M for matrix and margins, P for periosteal reaction, and S for soft tissue component. So whenever you are reading a bone lesion, that means on a radiograph, if you are seeing a bone lesion, you please remember these six: site, transition zone, age, matrix, periosteal reaction, and soft tissue component. Site and age. As we all know, the tumors most commonly are dependent on the site and age. Let me give you less than 30 years. If the tumor is epimetaphyseal, most of the time it is lower end of metaphyseal tumor, it is an osteosarcoma. Or if it is a diaphyseal tumor with narrow zone of transition, then it is ossified non-ossifying fibroma. NOF that is called as, and if it is diaphyseal, it is fibrous dysplasia. If it is diaphyseal but in the cortical region, if it is diaphyseal but it is in the cortex and middle of both, it is FD. If it is only in the cortical region, it's osteoid osteoma. Osteochondroma is what do you call exophytic lesion, then it is osteochondroma. In chondroma, it is in the medulla. See, osteochondroma is nothing but cartilage which has come beneath the periosteum so that it grows outside. This is exophytic lesion. Enchondroma is nothing but cartilage in the medullary cavity. That is, N is inside chondroma. It is a cartilaginous tumor. More than 30 years, if it is a bone infarction, diaphyseal, metastasis, perosteal, if it is a metadiaphyseal perosteal osteosarcoma, if it is epiphyseal, it is high grade chondrosarcoma, all these things. So, malignant lesions, if it is, this is about the long bones. If it is in the vertebra, the malignant anterior and posterior. In the posterior part, if they are involving the pedicles, they are metastasis. If they are involving the pedicles, it is metastasis. See, this is what we learn. Malignant lesions are seen predominantly in the anterior part body. It's not always true. Pedicle involvement is always metastasis. Anteriorly, too much anterior, you get degenerative. Like if the body is involved, the commonest are lymphoma, Hodgkin's lymphoma, myeloma, osteosarcoma, and metastasis. In benign lesions, benign bone lesions, osteoblastoma, osteoid osteoma, ABCs, osteochondroma, and chondromyxoid fibroma. The exceptions where the body is involved is hemangioma, FD, and Langerhans cell histiocytosis. Why you need to take a radiologist this thing is, or nuclear medicine opinion before starting RT. See, hemangioma, I have seen a case of hemangioma being given RT. Very rarely, invasive hemangioma needs RT. Otherwise, benign hemangioma, they don't need to do anything. That's why always, because they will come with bone pains. All hot spots on bone scar are not metastatic. All cold spots are not benign. Pure lytic lesions do not show any osteoblastic activity. That I'll come next. Next, transition zone. What is a transition zone? Is a sharp, well defined border is a sign of slow growth. A sclerotic border indicates poor biological activity. If you have a sclerotic border, it indicates poor biological activity. The exception to this rule is a metastasis from prostate. An ill-defined border, you don't know where the border is, with a broad zone of transition is a sign of aggressive growth. That means it is a lytic and it is a feature of malignant bone tumor. Most of the malignant bone tumors have broader or wide zone of transition as well as irregular border. Then matrix. So now we have finished site, S for site, T for transition zone, A for age. Now we are going for M. M is matrix. Matrix refers to the acellular or intracellular substance produced by the mesenchymal cells and includes osteoid produced by osteoblast, chondroid produced by chondroblast, and myxoid and collagen fibers produced by the fibroblast. So, what type of matrix we have? Osteoblast or osteoid matrix, chondroblast if they are active, chondroid matrix, and if the fibroblasts are active, you get myxoid and collagen fibers. So we have four types of matrix. That is, whether you may have matrix or no matrix. If the matrix is there, it can be chondroid, osseous, or fibrous. So this is a matrix, chondroid matrix calcification. I said you that enchondroma means it is cartilage inside the medullary cavity. As a cartilage, there is endochondral bone formation. The cartilage keeps on growing and it forms new bone. That's why there will be ossification. So typical chondroid matrix with ossification. So stippled or flocculent and rings and arc we seen in chondrosarcoma. This is a malignant transformation of enchondroma. You get a chondrosarcoma. Sarcoma arising from the cartilage. So the cartilage will normally be there at the epiphyseal plates. When it is beneath the periosteum, you will get osteochondroma. If it is inside the medullary cavity, then you get enchondroma. So this is stippled. This is seen in enchondroma, flocculent and rings and arcs. Then you call chondrosarcoma. So osseous matrix, you have osseous matrix, that is bone formation. It is typically seen in osteosarcomas, the solid or osteoid osteomas. What is the difference between osteoid osteoma, osteoblastoma, and osteosarcoma? Osteoid osteoma is a benign tumor less than 3 centimeters in the size, which is a bone forming tumor. Osteoblastoma is also a benign tumor more than 3 centimeters in size, bone forming tumor. Whereas osteosarcoma is a malignant tumor which is having bone formation. The difference between benign and malignant, as I already said, see this, you can see narrow zone of transition. Here you have a wider zone of transition. This type of ossification can also be seen in myositis ossificans. Then fibrous matrix, there is a replacement of all cartilage or marrow by fibrous tissue. This is called, this is ground glass. Anytime in radiology, you will be listening ground glass opacity, ground glass opacity. So which appears like this or which has a consistency of like this is called as fibrous. The ground glass opacities, they appear like ground glasses. So they have a HU more than of the fat but less than of the bone, and these fibrous areas, it is seen in fibrous dysplasia. So this is fibrous matrix. So when you talk about matrix, you are talking about three things: a osteoid matrix, then chondroid matrix, fibrous matrix, and the last is sometimes there will be no matrix only. If the lesion is developing fast, or if there is suppression of OPG, that is osteoprotegrin, that is happens in multiple myeloma, there will be no bone formation, no cartilage formation, nothing. So you will get pure lytic lesion, pure lytic lesion. That is a pure lytic lesion is called as multiple myeloma. Pure lytic lesion is multiple myeloma. That pure lytic lesion, why do we get pure lytic lesion? Because there is stimulation of rank, that is receptor activated nuclear kinase, but there is suppression of osteoprotectin. A highly aggressive lytic metastasis also will not show OPG, will suppress the OPG. That's why rapidly proliferative lytic metastasis as well as multiple myeloma do not have any matrix. The margins, you have a sclerotic margin, you have a non-sclerotic margin, ill-defined margin, moth-eaten margin, permeative. So sclerotic margin, but non-sclerotic narrow zone of transition, they are benign. Ill-defined, moth-eaten, permeative, they are malignant. You can see these ill-defined margins in osteomyelitis also, but other sclerotic and these things are mostly benign. So this is a non-ossifying fibroma. You have a even non-ossifying non non-ossifying fibroma of the distal tibial metaphysis in 23-year-old man. Radiograph shows shape of lesion is well defined, oval indicating this is intense sclerosis such as benign. Intense sclerosis such as benign. If a lytic lesion, lytic mets turn sclerotic, it's also called benign. Here also you have narrow zone of transition, but narrow zone of transition narrow zone of transition, but there are no sclerosis. This is also another type of benign only, but the exception to this is giant cell tumor. Lack of sclerotic rim indicates the lesion is indeterminate. Most of the time, you have a sclerotic rim, it indicates benign. Lack of sclerotic rim indicates it's a indeterminate. Then the ill-defined margins, when you have a ill-defined, means you don't know where it is starting and where is it ending. This type is called as 1C. It is seen in aggressive bone tumor. In this aggressive, so from you are going from less aggressive or benign to aggressive. The aggressive is when you have wide zone of transition. Then when you don't know, when this moth eaten, this is type 2 and type 3, the moth eaten and permeative type of margins, then it is nothing but a malignant etiology. Something is eating here and there, more severely osteolysis, everything is being eaten up. Like moth eaten appearance, it is seen in malignant bone, bone lesions. So the periosteal reaction, now we have read about site, transition zone, age, matrix, margins, and now P. P is for periosteal reaction. Periosteal reaction happens, it's like when somebody is attacking you, you make a defensive this thing, you make a defensive this thing. So this is called periosteal reaction. Periosteal reaction results when cortical bone reacts to one or more possible insults, tumor, infection, trauma. So whatever you are saying, that lytic or sclerotic, what do you call, onion peel, all these is nothing but periosteal reaction. The periosteal reaction is thin periosteal reaction. So secondary hypertrophic arthropathy seen because of excess PTH, thin and thick single layered periosteal reaction. This is the periosteal reaction. This is a periosteum. There is a mild thick periosteum. Very thick periosteal reaction. This is seen in osteoid osteoma. Then thick irregular periosteal reaction. This is seen in abnormal periosteal bone formation like Keffer's disease. Thick septate periosteal reaction. This happens when there is hemorrhage after injury into the periosteum. Onion skill or laminated periosteal reaction. This happens when there is Ewing sarcoma or chronic osteomyelitis. So previously it believes that why you will get laminated periosteal reaction. So previously it was believed that alternating cycles of rapid and slow injury to bone led to the formation of concentric layers. recent studies that multiple layers form because of modulation of sheets of fibroblasts in the adjacent soft tissue, which develop osteoblastic potential and gives rise to sheets of new bone. The spiculated pattern is an aggressive form of periosteal reaction that includes both hair on end and sunburst. చిన్నప్పుడు చదువు younger days we would have read that hair on end, sunburst, we would have by hearted that. But that is because that we never understood what it is. It is a form of periosteal reaction. What you are reading on a radiograph is nothing but the periosteal reaction. Spicules of bone form perpendicular to the periosteal surface in the hair on end type, which is highly suggestive of Ewing sarcoma. In the sunburst, radiate in a divergent pattern. See, this is hair on end. Okay, this is seen in Ewing sarcoma. One of the DD is long-standing chronic osteomyelitis. That's why I ask whenever we have a single lesion, we ask whether you have old radiographs and what is the narrow, what is the type of periosteal reaction and all these things. Sunburst periosteal reaction, which is a very aggressive form of periosteal reaction seen in osteosarcoma. See, it's nicely, you can see the CT scan, you can see this sunburst and disorganized aggressive periosteal reaction. So, again, going by that, thin periosteal reaction, benign, thick, probably benign, thick, irregular periosteal reaction, peculiar type seen in Caffey's disease. Septate periosteal reaction seen in hematoma with this thing laminated onwards, it is malignant most of the time. But osteomyelitis should be taken into consideration, and that's why fever, recent onset, all these things should be taken into consideration. This is clearly again malignant except for chronic osteomyelitis. This is sunburst periosteal reaction. Again, it is also very aggressive. This is malignant unless proven otherwise. Disorganized periosteal reaction can be because of many things. One is fractures and malunited fractures, which is the common cause for disorganized. Codman's, it is again and very aggressive. This is also seen in bone metastasis and osteosarcoma. A Codman develops when a portion of periosteum is lifted off. When a portion of the periosteum is lifted off, right? And the cortex by tumor, pus, or hemorrhage at a leading edge. This is commonly seen in osteosarcoma and occasionally with very high grade infection and metastasis. Other classification are continuous and interrupted. So now we have we have uh, known site, transition zone, age, matrix, margins, periosteal reaction, and the last is soft tissue component. So the soft tissue component is more typical of metastasis unless proven otherwise. The soft tissue component is seen in renal cell carcinoma, thyroid carcinoma, and in some sarcomas. So this soft tissue component is also very much important. If we have a soft tissue component, the diagnosis becomes more easier. So that is site, transition zone, age, matrix, periosteal reaction, matrix and margins also, and periosteal reaction and soft tissue component. So age, aggressive, less than 20, what are the differential diagnosis? Non-aggressive, what is the differential diagnosis? 20 to 40 and more than 40. The problem comes when you are following up the patients. You have treated a patient of neuroblastoma when he was young and they come for follow-up and you find bone lesions. Don't say that it is metastatic unless you have seen where is the site, where is the transition zone, where is the age, what is the matrix, periosteal reaction, and soft tissue component. You believe me or not, I have come across many people reporting once you label them into the malignancy, many benign bone lesions also are reported as metastatic because there is a history of malignancy and they will be unnecessarily from curative intent they will become palliative. So always double check when there is a solitary lesion. When there are multiple lesions, rule out what do you call Olias disease, that is multiple enchondromatosis, and what do you call these multiple enchondromatosis, multiple exostosis, and then also rule out a benign multiple sclerotic foci are seen in what you call that condition. Uh, I'm not getting it on my toe. Man, this that have been reported as metastasis multiple times. So please check if you are giving, especially when you are giving RT, see that you confirm that it is not a benign thing. And one of the other things where they have given RT in a repeated centers also is tuberculosis, because it can mimic like anything. But the difference is in the when two contiguous vertebrae are involved, and if there is loss of intervertebral displays, please be sure those lesions, especially if you are giving for a contiguous vertebral lesions, you ask for a biopsy of the bone. So just the history of malignancy will not work. But if it is non-contiguous, if there is wide zone of transition, if there is high spinal instability neoplasia score or high mirror score, please uh, please go ahead with radiotherapy if there is high spinal instability in neoplasia score and it is non-contiguous. And I have seen prostate cancer with along with coexisting Paget's disease. Many have treated with radiotherapy. So maybe these are 1 to 2% of the patients what you are treating in 900%. But if you know the basics, if you know how a bone behaves, what is the bone biology? Bone is a very dynamic structure. It's periosteal reaction. It is part of the calcium metabolism, calcium homeostasis, all these things, so that you will radiation will go to the intended person and will not go to the unintended person. So each bone you have to write what is the site. That also I'll take a class next time. What is the site? What is the transition zone? What is the age? What is the what matrix? Suppose you have a simple metastasis from neuroblastoma, where will be they located? How they appear on X-ray? How they appear on CT? How they appear on MR? How they appear on bone scan? And how they appear on PET-CT scan? If you know all these, then you will be uh, well equipped, so that you will do justice to the patient. Integration of knowledge is wisdom. That's it. So you have to integrate radiology with your practice, so that you will be wise enough to avoid unnecessary treatment and promote treatment in who are deserving. Thank you. Please share any questions.
Thank you.
Any
Thank you
questions?
so much. If there are any questions, please unmute and ask.
See, this is uh, as much as you interact with the radiologist and nuclear medicine physician, the more interesting it becomes. So I have this. I don't say that uh, all the people are treating wrongly medically. Most of them they treat correctly only. Few cases I have seen, that is Paget's was treated once. One patient of hyperparathyroidism. I'll show you that images also, was roaming thinking that he's having metastasis, and a small simple one MRI of one part was given it as metastasis. So he was roaming, and they were trying to find the primary. When this came for PET CT, then when we did a PET CT, it was multiple lesions and no primary was found. I just asked go for a bone scan. It was a super scan pattern, which then when we evaluated his PTH, it was in thousands. So by having a good idea based on the PET CT only, I could see that this doesn't look malignant because of the narrow zone of transition and other features of brown tumor. I just said let's go for a bone scan and PTH, and we found out it is hypopara. So all that is lytic is not again metastatic. All that is blastic is not benign. All the hot spots are not metastatic. All the cold spots are not benign. So you should know a depth of radiology, so that at least oncoradiology, so that you will do the best for the patients.
So when to go for a bone scan or a PET CT? Looking for an, like, after we get an X-ray, like, what are the indications of when should we order an X-ray, like a bone scan or a PET after looking for?
See, the based on for bone tumors you are asking, or for metastasis you are asking? Okay.
like whatever, we are not sure what it is. We have just a X-ray, and like as you said, we cannot certainly say, looking at the zone of transition or whatever characteristics are there. So when should we order a bone scan, or should we order it in every case for
No,
PET CT or bone scan?
no, it's not in every case. Let's not radiate unnecessarily. Let's not make the patient spend for it. So only when there is wider zone of transition, and that is why when there is wide zone of transition, and where is the tumor, and what is the primary. Suppose you have a sclerotic lesion in prostate cancer, the bone scan will help. Okay, there is a lytic lesion with no matrix at all, that is more in favor of a multiple myeloma or a highly aggressive malignancy. Because there is no bone formation, bone scan will not be of any help. You should go for PET CT. Okay, so that's why first, if the matrix is no matrix, when there is no matrix at all, please go for PET CT. And if it is, first of all, is it narrow zone of transition, wide zone of transition? If it is narrow zone of transition, discuss with your radiologist for benign things. If it is a wider zone of transition, check the matrix. If it is an osteoid matrix, go for a bone scan. If it is a cartilaginous matrix, again go back to your radiologist. If it is fibrous matrix, go back to your radiologist. If it is no matrix, please go to directly to the PET CT. So simple. I have tried to narrow it down. So one, first you check whether the zone of transition is narrow or wide. If you have a narrow zone of transition, go back to your radiologist. Sir, though it is a malignant case, can they? What are the differential diagnosis? Can it be of any benign thing? Right. Or if he says yes, fine. If it is no, then next go back. If it is, once it is wide zone of transition, then check the matrix. Is it osteoid matrix, cartilaginous matrix? Is it fibrous matrix? Is it no matrix? Osteoid matrix, bone scan will be definitely of helpful. If it is a cartilaginous matrix, again think of non cancerous or secondary, non-related to your primary primary tumor. Then the third thing, fibrous, look after fibrous dysplasia, and no matrix, immediately go for a PET CT scan. Am I clear?
Yes, sir. And there are also a few questions in the chat box, sir, if you could.
Okay, I just answered. Bone scan is not helpful in myeloma. The answer is clear and blunt. Why? Bone scan detects osteoblastically active tumor. There is the, what do you say? So what happens in multiple myeloma is, in bone physiology there are two agents: osteoclast and osteoblast. The osteoclast take up the bone, cause resorption. Osteoblasts form. Osteoclasts are stimulated by rank, that is called receptor activated nuclear kinase ligand, rank ligand. And osteoblasts are stimulated by OPG, osteoprotegrin. So the rank ligand uh, is active, and OPG is also active. If both are active, like if rank and OPG both are active, then you will have a mixed lesion. If rank is predominantly active and OPG is less active, you get predominantly lytic metastasis. If rank is active but OPG is more active, you get sclerotic metastasis. But what happens in myeloma is, a rank is hyperactive, and not only that, it suppresses the OPG. That's why lesions of multiple myeloma do not show any osteoblastic activity except in POEM syndrome, that is polyneuropathy. What do you call? Myeloma and scleroderma. In those, the sclerotic lesions were there. Sclerotic lesions are there, except in myeloma of Poem syndrome. The rest of the myeloma is not showing any osteoblastic activity. That's why doing a bone scan is waste. Those only where there is fractures in myeloma patient, that is pathological fractures, only show up. So bone scan is not an ideal investigation for myeloma. Bone scan is not an ideal investigation for myeloma. It should not be done. Instead of that, whole body x-rays, or in a non-affordable patients, whole body PET CT or whole body CT, or the ideal thing. Sir, can you explain the bone scan, role of bone scan in thyroid cancer? In thyroid cancer, most of the actually bone scan is not very sensitive. Lytic lesions are there. Iodine scan is sensitive. But when do we do bone scan? We do bone scan when for iodine scan, the patient has to be withholding L-carnitine for 4 weeks, or the patient has to be on recombinant TSH, which is a very costly thing. So we do bone scan when the patient complains of bones pain, even when the patient is on thyroxine. And not only that, when we also do a bone scan to know if the patient is does need what do you call radiotherapy, especially if the sin score is high. This we do in conjugation with SPECT CT or F18 bone scan, where we have CT also to know the spinal instability in neoplasia score. If there is a high spinal instability in neoplasia score, if we withhold the thyroxine, the patient may go to paraparesis or skeletal related event. To prevent skeletal related event, we do a bone scan when the patient is in unstimulated state. That unstimulated state is when the patient is on thyroxine. Ravi Teja, is it clear? And coming to PET-CT in multiple myeloma, we do. That is now with those modified Jury Salmon staging, now PET is also included, PET and MRI. Any more questions?
Okay. So I think there are no more questions, sir.
Okay, thank you. Have a nice day and happy Diwali.
So,
We'll continue with this in next week.
happy Diwali to you, sir. And thank you so much, sir. Thank you.